calling this Education Assembly Committee on Education meeting to order. Welcome to the room, everybody. It feels like first day of school, right? We're all kind of giddy, kind of exciting. So welcome to all of you in our audience. Nice to see you in person. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Duran. Here. Assemblyman Flores.
Present.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblywoman Krasner.
Here.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur. Here. Assemblywoman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Chair Bill Bray Axelrod.
Here, and please mark Assemblywoman Hanson as absent excused. We do have a quorum. So welcome to all of you here in Carson City, and for those viewing online or through our YouTube channel, and for those participating by phone or video. Few housekeeping measures that have changed a little bit before we begin. For those of you joining online, if you haven't done so already, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize the background noise, and please turn your camera on when your bill is called. Additionally, everyone, please put your electronic devices, especially cell phones and laptops, into the silent mode. For all individuals presenting in our meeting room, please keep your face coverings on at all time and maintain social distancing. We do expect courtesy and respect in this committee. We don't always agree on policy, but we need to be respectful of each other in the legislative process. This in-person and online meeting format helps to keep everyone safe during COVID-19. Members of the public may provide testimony in various ways, all of which are listed on the agenda. Reminder, meeting materials can be accessed on the committee's webpage on Nellis. And for those of you who are watching online, in this virtual world, we do have several screens. Assemblyman Nguyen has two right connected to her laptop. We're all jealous. So if you see us looking in other places, we're likely looking at items for the bills. So today we are going to hear two bills. We're going to start with Assembly Bill 450 and then move on to Senate Bill 173 in that order. For the bill hearing today, I have allocated equal time and testimony for support, opposition, and neutral. Each person providing testimony will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes to speak, and we will be timing people so it's fair, and we'll limit the overall testimony in each period to 30 minutes. If you wish to testify and have not done so already, please register to participate on Nellis through the link provided, and you may also submit written comments, and I will make sure the committee receives them. And with that, I will invite the bill presenters for Assembly Bill 450. And I believe we thank you very much for being here, and you may begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Heather Korbulik. I'm happy to be here this afternoon and speak with the committee in person. It feels really great to be in the building. For the record, again, I'm Heather Korbulik, and I'm here today representing Governor Sisolak as his policy director. I'm here to present Assembly Bill 450, which appoints a committee to conduct an interim study to align workforce training and programs offered by community colleges in the state of Nevada. Before I get into the details of the bill, on behalf of the governor, I'd like to acknowledge the work of the Nevada system of education, or higher education, as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic response. Campuses across the state implemented mitigation measures immediately to protect faculty, students, and their communities. Science departments helped the state build COVID-19 test kits, which were in short supply around the country at the time. The Nevada Public Health Laboratory became a statewide leader in testing, research, and genomic analysis. NC colleges, universities have trained and built the state's contact training workforce, or contact tracing workforce. NC scholars have provided key input on the governor's mitigation measures and have informed the state's path going forward throughout this pandemic. And campuses have been great partners in everything from testing to vaccinations throughout the entirety of this pandemic. And on behalf of the governor, we are grateful for the efforts of the state's institutions today and every day. As Governor Sisolak said in his State of the State on January 19th, he's calling on the legislature to work with NC over the next 2 years to develop a framework to analyze community colleges' role in building Nevada's workforce and economic future. As Nevada rebounds and finds new footing in a post-pandemic landscape, the importance of community colleges as they relate to workforce development will be more important than ever. Since the time he served on the Board of Regents, the governor has been vocal about the importance of community colleges and his desire for the state to focus on supporting and expanding access to certificate programs and two-year degrees that can lead to immediate jobs. The timing is right to review the governance and the role of the state's community colleges. Assembly Bill 450 proposes the creation of a multidisciplinary committee to study governance structure of Nevada's community colleges as it relates to the state's workforce development needs. The governor believes that Nevada's workforce development system is in need of a meaningful transformation to meet the needs of our evolving economy. Those needs have only been magnified by the current public health crisis. As you all know, NSHE is governed by the Board of Regents and encompasses several different types of institutions of higher education, including community colleges. Community colleges have always, or will be and have always been, critical to the state's efforts to develop Nevada's workforce as the economy continues to expand and diversify to meet the needs of existing trades and professions and for emerging careers in the future economy. Community colleges currently provide a broad spectrum of education from traditional degree programs to certificate and training programs, all of which are essential to developing our workforce. Recent economic downturns in this state highlight the need for community colleges to be more closely aligned to the diversity of students, business communities, and the regions of the states that they serve. In order to maximize the opportunities offered by Nevada's community colleges and the expanding economy, Nevada must take a coalition approach to identifying opportunities for realigning education and training funding, to increase coordination and collaboration among partners within the workforce system, and to establish accountability for statewide workforce development going forward. With an evolving economy, or state economy and workforce, Nevada has to ensure higher education formula incentivizes the education and training of tomorrow's workforce. Additionally, it's important for us to determine whether new methods of coordinating, governing, or funding community colleges in this state are necessary to improve and advance the purpose of the state's community colleges. The committee will work on an interim study to identify the opportunities for aligning workforce training with community colleges to meet the needs of our evolving economy. The committee will also analyze the governance structure and funding mechanisms for community colleges to ensure coordination is occurring among all of our workforce development partners. To reiterate, the governor believes that the NSHE's funding formulas are in need of review, and that's why he specifically called on this study committee to analyze existing funding structures. The bill establishes a collaborative effort to establish a study committee that includes relative stakeholders and will be co-chaired by the chancellor and industry partners. The committee will include one community college president and will be subject to open meeting laws, which will allow for all of the other stakeholders to attend and contribute. The study will be data-driven and will require and rely on the expertise of national experts. It will also identify national best practices of governance and of funding methods for community colleges, which will include an analysis of effective relationships among local school districts, workforce development, and community colleges, and will make recommendations concerning how the state can strengthen these relationships to improve student achievement. It will also analyze effective relationships between business and industry and community colleges and make recommendations concerning how the state can strengthen such relationships and better prepare students for entry into the workforce. The committee will provide a report of its findings to the governor, to the Legislative Council Bureau, and to the chair of the Board of Regents in time for the recommendations to be considered in advance of the 83rd legislative session. With that, I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Committee, I know I have questions, but I will go to the committee first. Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you for your presentation of this. Is there a particular reason that this is focusing on community colleges? I know that community colleges, obviously are within that higher education system and have their unique challenges. Is that kind of the thought process in kind of separating these?
Thanks for the question. Chair, is it okay if I go direct? Is that
Oh,
okay with
please
you?
do.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. So the governor.
Identify yourself.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry, rules. I'm Heather Corbulic for the record. So Governor Sisolak has looked at this from all angles and really wants to be strategic in his approach to kind of like discussing and reviewing the governance structure around community colleges and as they relate to the higher education university systems in general. I think our focus right now, because of our state's workforce development needs and how they're evolving. I mean, regularly, our community colleges are actively responding to this new workforce development need. Really kind of gives us an opportunity to take an introspective look at whether or not we should keep those two systems together or whether or not those two systems should be separated. That's part of the study in the committee's charge. And I will also just add that Chancellor Rose, who is appointed to be co-chair on this committee, has experience with that and with researching that and practicality of implementing things like that in the state of Oregon. So she brings a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you. Go ahead, Assemblywoman Tolles.
Hi, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you. It's wonderful to see you in person as well. And I'm just curious because I know that there's another effort to move the Office of Workforce Innovation out of the governor's office under Dieter, and there just seems to be a lot of crossover between Owen and what we're proposing here. So could you just talk me through the differences and the reason for those policy changes?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. So Governor Sisolak's governor recommended budget does move the Office of Workforce Innovation, Owen, I can never remember all the N's, into the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation, really as an effort to start aligning all of the various workforce development organizations within the state into one centralized location that's really focused on putting Nevadans back to work. This is a conversation that brings in the Department of GoEd into the committee and starts researching and looking at broadly across the state with industry partners, private industry partners, chambers, about how do we not only align our entire state's workforce development needs with the students' needs and getting people into practicing into the workforce with our new job market. So I think that they are aligned but kind of separate and not all together in one package, but the same people will be involved in the conversations with this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so it still sounds like it's very similar. Will it also utilize the information from the P20 analysis as well, because that also aligns the education goals with the workforce needs in an emerging economy?
Heather Corbulic for the record. So certainly we expect that the Owen folks and the Dieter folks will be at the table and bringing that information with them and having these conversations and being a part of the discussion on how we build from here.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Torres.
Forgot how to use the buttons. It's been a while. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Corbulic, for the presentation. I appreciate it. So I'm just trying to understand, I understand that the focus is for us to understand, the role, to really, assess the governance structures that we have in place right now for our community colleges, but given that the system does consist right now of our community colleges, our state college, and our universities, has there been any consideration then including them in this conversation? Because it seems like this would very much impact the entire system and not just community colleges.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Heather Corbulic, for the record. So I think that's part and parcel of why we've put Chancellor Rose as a co-chair, along with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and again, a community college president, and then having open meetings where everybody will be able to contribute and bring their insight. The committee is also able to develop and set up subcommittees at the chair's desire. So I think all of those parties will eventually be included in the conversation.
Thank you. And just kind of like a follow-up statement, I just think that there should be a larger consideration of how this is going to impact those universities, that has to be a priority as well, is how this impacts the system as a whole and not just a part of the system. And I definitely support like the intent of this legislation, but I would urge there to be the consideration of adding additional language that would allow for them to be really a part of this conversation.
Thank you, and I'm going to go ahead and just bring up some questions that I have. I like this bill, and I appreciate the intent very much, and I think this is I think the community colleges are a great place to start, honestly. Not everyone out there is looking for a 4-year, degree, and so I think this. But what kind of is sticking out to me is the makeup of the committee that will be studying this. I'm not seeing apprenticeship programs. I'm not actually seeing labor at all as someone who should be there, and I think that that's a missed opportunity. So I honestly don't, and maybe I missed it, but I don't see even the state workforce development on here. So I think that we've got a lot covered, and I appreciate that, but I think that it needs to be a little more inclusive. And so I'll make this into a question. Was that something you considered?
Madam Chair, Heather Corbula, for the record, thank you for the question. Yes, absolutely. We've had considerations around involving labor. I think we were really working towards having a committee that could be nimble and quick, and why we narrowed the scope to the 7 different members. It does include an office representative from GoEd, along with chambers, which represent a wide and diverse makeup of businesses and industry leaders. And the superintendent of education, who happens to be in the room with us, and community college presidents. And so what we thought that we were doing is creating a bill that would allow for a lot of flexibility with primary stakeholders at the table, and then allowing for subcommittees to be formed from there, and then also having a public forum in order to include all of the voices that felt like they wanted to be heard.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I do think that you have a wide swath of representation. To me, because those apprenticeship programs, people can make a very good living for the rest of their lives with those programs, that I think that they should definitely have a seat at the table, and I'm happy to continue this conversation offline with you and go forward on that. Committee, do we have any other questions before we move on? No? Okay, with that, we will move on to testimony in support. Do we have anyone on the Zoom link who wants to testify in support of this bill? Okay. We will move on to the phones. Or is there anyone in the room who wanted to testify in support? I forget to ask that. Okay, and anyone on BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line?
To testify in support on Assembly Bill 450, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 738, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, Peter Guzman, President of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, here in support of AB 450. I'd like to thank Chair Bilbray, Axelrod, and all the members of the Education Committee. For years, we have talked about diversifying our economy, but we cannot effectively diversify our economy while failing to properly be training our workforce. I can tell you firsthand that community colleges play a very important role in effectively training our students. The reality is that community colleges are more than just a stepping stone into a 4-year degree. In fact, many students spend 2 years at a community college, and that can lead to lucrative career in high-demand, high-paying jobs. As we recover from this pandemic, now more than ever, we must be laser-focused in the needs of our employers with workforce curriculum at community colleges. Finally, I want to thank our governor's office for consistently working to help prepare our workforce for all different emerging industries in Nevada. This study is an important step in that direction. and it will continue to make us a better community. The Latin Chamber is a proud supporter of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman, for your testimony. BPS, do we have any other callers in support?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no more callers in the queue to testify in support on Assembly Bill 450.
Thank you, BPS. And with that, I will close testimony in support and open testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 450.
To testify in opposition on Assembly Bill 450, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 837, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and committee members. Kent Irvin, ERVIN, for the Nevada Faculty Alliance, the Independent Association of Faculty at NC Colleges and Universities. We work to empower our faculty members to be fully engaged in our mission to help students succeed. The NFA is an affiliate of the American Association of University Professors, which advances academic freedom and shared governance in higher education. The Nevada Faculty Alliance is supportive of the study in AB 450 to look at how our community colleges can better serve the needs of workforce development and career and technical education statewide. Please refer to Professor Douglas Unger's written statement in support. I am testifying in opposition respecting the committee's rules in order to propose a change to the bill. Specifically, the study committee should include representatives of community college faculty nominated to the faculty shared governance bodies and should also include a student representative. It is important to have direct representation with a vote from those who will develop and teach the workforce development programs and from students. We further note that while workforce development is an important part of the community college missions, the academic and core education programs leading to associate's degrees and transfers to 4-year institutions are also essential to the success of Nevada students and economic development statewide. The study committee should include in its deliberation the cost of the new workforce development programs and how the supported industries can contribute to the training of their workers. Thank you very much. We would fully support AB 450 with the addition of faculty and student representatives to the study committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other callers in opposition?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, there are no more callers to testify in opposition on Assembly Bill 450.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the testimony in opposition and open testimony in the neutral position.
To testify in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 450, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 023, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Bilbray Axelrod and committee members. My name is Dr. Brenda Pearson, BRENDA. PEARSON, and I am here representing the Clark County Education Association. CCEA is testifying in neutral on Assembly Bill 450, the creation of an interim study that will explore opportunities to streamline the post-secondary education from our community colleges to workforce development programs is a key component of Nevada's economic diversification and development. CCEA is in neutral on AB 450 because we know that the key to economic diversification in Nevada is in the K through 20 delivery system. In Nevada, it is important that we utilize our community colleges to their fullest and allow this interim study to guide how we can best work together to improve student achievement. However, CCA would be remiss if we failed to mention that we are in neutral on this bill because we believe that the K-20 education delivery system must include looking at new revenue streams to fund our community colleges and the pupil-centered funding plan optimally to ensure that every workforce development program is impactful and that our students have the skills needed to transition to K-12, from K-12 to post-secondary workforce programs. This session, legislators have the opportunity to fully fund the pupil-centered funding plan, allowing students across our state to realize their full potential. Funding our education delivery system optimally means that legislators must identify a designated revenue stream for the purpose of education. CCEA understands that in order to pass new revenue, we must use a bipartisan effort led by the governor. However, any decision short of passing new revenue this session to fund the pupil-centered funding plan will create delays in the development of streamlined workforce programs. Due to the learning loss attributed to distance education over the pandemic, we must invest in our students to ensure that they have the necessary skills to capitalize on the relationships this interim study aims to improve. Creating a streamlined system that connects K-20 to workforce opportunities will only be successful if our K-12 system produces college and career-ready graduates. This cannot be done without a stable and consistent designated revenue stream aimed at improving the quality of K-12 education for all students. CCA would like to thank this committee for hearing Assembly Bill 450, and we look forward to helping ensure the recommendations of this interim study are adopted and executed to provide Nevada students with opportunities.
Thank you very much for the call. Are there any other calls in the neutral position?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, there are no more callers to testify in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 450.
Thank you very much, BPS. And with that, I will close the testimony in the neutral position. Did you want to come back up and leave it at that? All right, thank you very much. And with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 450, and I look forward to following up with you. Thank you. And now we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 173, and we have Senator Don Darrow Loop, we have Superintendent Joan Ebert, and I believe we have our own Assemblywoman Natha Anderson, who is here as well. So welcome in person. Nice to see you all. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be in the Assembly where I once lived. So thank you so much for inviting us. Thank you, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and committee members. For the record, I am Marilyn Dondero Loop, representing Senate District 8 in Clark County. And with me today is my co-sponsor, Assemblywoman Natha Anderson, and State Superintendent Joan Ebert. We are pleased to present Senate Bill 173 with the first reprint of the Back on Track Act for your consideration. The COVID-19 pandemic forced many schools to close their doors and suddenly transition to distance learning. This phrase, distance learning, has been said so many times that sometimes we forget to take a moment to reflect on how this fundamentally shifted and disrupted our schooling. The transition was difficult for our students, families, educators, and support staff. As we consider everything we have been through, we should take great pride in how our communities have worked together to face these challenges, and we should acknowledge all of those who have gone above and beyond to do the best that they can for our kids in this difficult circumstances. Parents, teachers, and school administrators are to be commended for adapting. But the simple fact is, in-person instruction cannot be replicated. We know that learning loss because of the pandemic is a crisis that threatens to set many of our kids back, leaving a widened achievement gap and children behind. If we don't work to correct it now, we will have implications for their educational development for years to come. Research indicates this learning loss, sometimes referred to as the COVID slide, may set some of our students' educational development back as much as 2 years. In some cases, the effects may be felt into adulthood, including reduced educational attainment and learning potential. The damaging effects of learning loss can even be a bigger setback for communities that are already disadvantaged socially and economically. One thing is certain: virtual learning means unequal learning. We already know that learning loss is widening racial disparities in education. Research done by McKinsey & Company and the Education Commission of the States indicates that negative impacts of virtual schooling may be greatest for low-income, Black, and Hispanic students. This impact may be partly due to those students having a higher risk of limited time or lower quality remote instruction and uneven access to devices and the internet compared to their peers. According to this research, if schools return to in-class learning in January of 2021, which we have already passed, Students who are white may experience 6 months of learning loss compared to typical in-class learning. However, Hispanic students may experience more than 9 months of learning loss, and our Black students may experience over 10 months of learning loss, and low-income students may experience as much as 12 months of learning loss, over twice as much as those who are white. But let me be clear, even 1 month of learning loss is unacceptable for any of our students. That same research estimates the impact of student learning loss to individuals and society. In that same scenario where in-class learning would have resumed in January, our students, the average kindergarten through 12th grade student, could lose in their lifetime $61,000 to $82,000 as an earning. As a former 30-year educator myself, I know firsthand there is no substitute for one-on-one instruction. This time with students at any grade level and in any subject. Our teachers are essential to the success of our kids, and there is simply no way to replicate in-person instruction and that one-on-one time with students. We must work to address the learning loss resulting from the past year in order to make sure our students don't fall behind. We need to know how our students are doing on a day-to-day basis, sustain their interest over the summer, and use this time in the classroom so they are more prepared to return to school this fall. Finally, I want to acknowledge that what we are discussing today is only possible because of the American Rescue Plan Act that Congress passed and President Biden signed into law just recently. I want to specifically thank Senator Cortez Masto, Senator Rosen, and Congresswoman Titus, and Congressman Horsford, and Congresswoman Lee for voting for this bill. These critical relief dollars coming to Nevada schools have allowed us to bring forward the Back on Track Act, which asks our school districts to come up with plans to provide options for both virtual and in-person summer school. The bill will help move the state and our school districts through that planning process, ensuring that hundreds of millions of dollars in federal aid intended to mitigate learning loss is being put to work for our students. I am now going to turn the microphone over to Assemblywoman Natha Anderson for her remarks and a walkthrough of the legislation.
It is kind of like musical chairs. Thank you, Senator Dondera Loop, and good afternoon, Chairs Bilbray Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. My name is Natha Anderson. It's my honor and pleasure to represent Assembly District 30. And as many of you know, I'm a teacher in my real life. And I think that the Senator has laid out very clearly what has been lost this last year and a half in our classrooms. So first, though, I want to tell you why I love being a teacher. It has nothing to do with this bill. It has everything to do with our students. It has everything to do with the fact that when you come into a classroom, the first few days are just like what you just experienced today, where you've got the nervous energy of who am I going to sit next to, of what's going to happen. And then as the year continues, there's a sense of community. There's a sense of pride. There's a sense of joy and sometimes disappointment when a student learns something or when they find out the new world. The worst and also the best is when you've created a sense of community in your classroom and you have to tell the students, stop talking. I got to get through this. Stop it. And I know that there are 2 or 3 other educators in here who have had that experience as well, because they're not always talking about your subject matter, no matter how much you wish they were. But that's what creates a sense of community. And based upon what I'm hearing from my peers, that is what has been lost. It is not just about a grade that our students have lost. It is a sense of the social and emotional learning. It is a sense that it's okay to fall, because you're not going to fail. You're in a safe place. We've lost that a little bit, and it's time for us to try to regain it. The Back on Track Act is one way to do so. It's allowing our different school districts to come up with the best plan for their school district. Because what is right for Washoe County will be very different than what is right for Elko, and very different for what is needed for Clark, and very different for what is needed in Carson. So it is defining that there needs to be a plan in place. I think the other items that have been missing are much better defined in the letters that were written by our federal delegation. In particular, the letter that our former Senator Titus, state senator, now U.S. Congresswoman member Titus wrote, where she also utilized some other evidence that I believe also Senator Dondero brought up. So if it's okay with the chair, I'm just going to walk through the bill, if that's all right with you. Again, as I said before, one of the important items to remember is that there is no one way to have this plan. So each school district is being told, or is being directed to create their own plan. Trying to do some research, I know that every single school district has already started discussing this. It might not have been brought up to their school boards, but they've already started discussing how to do this. And so those plans will be in place. The Back on Track to Act, Senate Bill 173, contains an initial roadmap with next steps in the fight to combat learning loss in two distinct ways. First, it allows an avenue for intensive and targeted services for our students. Second, the bill requires school districts and the State Public Charter School Authority to submit a plan to address any loss of learning due to the pandemic. So within 30 days after the signing of this bill into law, the Section 1 authorizes the Board of Trustees of each school district and the State Public Charter School Authority to submit to the state superintendent a plan to address any learning loss experienced by pupils as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The plan would include the option for pupils to attend summer school, either in person or online, and the manner in which the schools and districts or charter schools will target pupils most at risk of learning loss. Examples of students most at risk of learning are outlined in the bill, but I want to make sure it's clear. This is not an extensive list in any shape or form. There are many other individuals than those listed that we need to make sure to target, and that's why it's so important to have each school district create their own plan. Some of those mentioned in the bill include pupils with disabilities, who are chronically absent, who are enrolled in grades 1 through 3 and are struggling in mathematics and reading. And again, I want to make sure this is clear as well. Our students that are struggling in 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, legislative, the other grades as well, they are also need to be targeted. But we on purpose did grades 1 through 3 based upon how important it is to have that base. And also those who lack the financial resources necessary to access services to address learning loss. Section 1 also requires a school district or charter school offering summer school to include transportation and meal services. School districts, when they submit their plans, can design their transportation policy to fit the needs of their students. Additionally, it outlines requirements for summer school personnel and authorizes use of federal money to administer the program. Senate Bill 173 requires that personnel who are hired for summer school programs, including but not limited to teachers, support personnel, counselors, speech-language pathologists, other licensed personnel, receive supplemental pay at least equal to their current contract rate. Section 2 of SB 173 requires school districts and the Charter School Authority to submit a report to the state superintendent by October 31st of this year regarding any plan to address learning loss, including information related to summer school and the use of federal money for that purpose. The Nevada Department of Education will then submit a consolidated report by November 30th to the governor and to the legislature. As mentioned before, the degree to which the pandemic impacted some of our areas are still unknown. The information gathered in these reports will be critical to understanding the severity of the situation we anecdotally and also personally know exist. I'd like to turn it over at this time to Superintendent Ebert for her remarks. So for those of you playing along for musical chairs, the next person's up.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Bilbray Axelrod. It is so great to be in this room, Vice Chair Miller, with all of you today and the entire committee. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I am honored to serve as your State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I want to thank Senator Dondero Loop and Assemblywoman Anderson for their leadership in this bill and including the Nevada Department of Education and other stakeholders in this critical work. It is important to acknowledge that regaining our equilibrium as a society is going to take every single one of us. And the Nevada Department of Education is working hard in partnership with the governor, the State Board of Education, you as our legislators, all of our stakeholders, to support the ongoing recovery of our students from COVID-19. It is our job to provide what all parents want for their children, a pathway to success. Every child that is willing to work hard will have our unwavering support so they can graduate with the tools they need to build a home, a life, and a future. This Back on Track Act is an important part of every school district to deliver on our promise to students and their families. As Senator Dondera Loop said so eloquently, there's no substitute for one-to-one instruction with students at any grade level in any subject. I share her deep appreciation for all of the parents, grandparents, siblings, caretakers, and other family members, mentors who went above and beyond to support our students in the distance learning. But we know that students who rely on the supports of interventions are only successful with teachers that have endured all of the work during this pandemic to support our children. The conversation that SB 173 has opened in Nevada is part of the national dialogue. As noted, the American Rescue Plan provided $1.1 billion to the state of Nevada, and it acknowledges the unique opportunity to leverage summer learning to support our educational recovery. Of the $1.1 billion, 90% of the funds go directly to districts and schools. 20% of those funds must be used to address learning loss. Of the 10% of funds that NDE may reserve for statewide activities, at least 5% must address learning loss, at least 1% must be used toward summer enrichment programming, and another 1% must be invested in after-school programs. I am proud that Nevada is once again poised to lead in the way of forward for recovering from COVID-19, thanks to this legislative proposal. Thank you for all your continued leadership, and now I will turn it back to Senator Dondera Loop.
Assemblywoman Anderson, we will allow you to sub in on
Thank
musical
you.
chairs.
Well, we just found out that we also have a parent and a student who would also like to be able to be part of this. So thank you very much, Chair, for allowing that to happen. Is that correct?
Thank you. Actually, what I was going to do, I was just going to move on to support, and they are on the Zoom, so I was going to go to them next. Oh,
Perfect. That works out just right, I believe, unless
Senator Dondera Loop,
different plan.
musical chairs. Who has the music?
Exactly. Thank you again for allowing me some remarks, and Marilyn Dondera Loop for the record. So just to kind of pull that together, over the past year we've experienced our most challenging circumstances with nuanced impacts across school districts, and it's clear that our students and our schools continue to face significant hurdles from the pandemic's impacts. And this is not the time to sit back and wait to see how bad the situation is, or just to accept that learning loss as a new reality. Our kids, our educators, our families, and our communities, and our state deserve more. These unprecedented times call for a consistent and guided response plan to address the profound learning loss and other issues experienced across our communities. I am hopeful that by providing these next steps to our schools, we will confront the learning loss, achievement gaps, and underlying inequities that have been amplified by the pandemic and get our students back on track. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for your consideration.
And I'm going to keep you there, Senator, because we're going to open it up to the committee for questions. And we'll start with Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Thank you, and thank you all for your presentation here today. So when I think of my own family members that came here, like in 1975, after like the end of the Vietnam War, they brought their, like my uncles brought their like kids, and they were 5 and 6, so my cousins were at that age, and they came over here, and I know that they heavily relied on our education system to help them with learning English and preparing them for like their future. So, and I know that our education system has given them like real opportunities. They are now teachers and engineers and other productive members of our communities. So And I know in Clark County alone, I was just reading an article about how nearly 70,000 of the 320,000 kids in the Clark County School District are ELL students. And just looking in here, I saw that also a part of the American Rescue Plan states must outline, and you guys kind of highlighted that, looking at successful strategies for spending, future spending, and data to support that spending of those students that are homeless, have disabilities, the other students that you outlined in there. But I noticed that English language learners were not included in that. So I'm very grateful that you guys are bringing this bill and also the passage of the American Rescue Plan. But is there any reason that those students were not specifically enumerated in those sections of things that we're looking? Did you believe they were included in some of these other categories? Or if that's something, I don't know, just more of a comment question kind of thing?
Thank you for the question, and I absolutely understand. This list was not all-inclusive, if you will. I mean, those were some examples of who we might be capturing. For example, just to go to the other end of the spectrum, if we had a student who needed English 101 in high school, we did not specifically include that in this list. So absolutely, our ELL learners and are part of this list and included. They would be included in the Title I schools. They might be included in magnet schools, any schools that have this program, because every single school in every single school district will not have, of course, a summer school, but all students are invited to attend. So with that being said, we absolutely embrace and hope. I mean, my biggest worry is that we won't have enough seats, and it's also would be my biggest accomplishment, right? Is that we have so many students attending that we don't have enough seats. But I don't see that we won't have enough seats because I trust that our school districts and our educators have embraced this and will help us make our kids whole.
We have a question from Assemblywoman Toles.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. It's good to see you and this committee, and wanted to commend you for all the support that you garnered for this legislation, and appreciate that you're bringing it forward. I just had a couple technical questions, really. So in looking at Section 1, subsection 4, if the school district or charter school is unable to hire a sufficient number of persons to work in the summer and so forth, they may hire retired public employees. So we have obviously current teachers under contract and then potentially reaching into the retired public employees to fill these slots. Do substitute teachers are they also included in there? Because I would think they would be a good resource, and maybe that's included in those that are currently teaching. I'm not sure.
Thank you very much. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. Yes, they would be included. So any certificated licensed employee would be included. And we're counting on the school districts to open that up to those individuals that would fit into those categories.
Thank you so much. And may I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
So, and I see here, and this is technical, and hopefully I can wrap my head around it, but just in regards to the payment, so they'll receive compensation in addition to their regular compensation. If you could just walk through those, I think we have 3 different scenarios there. We have full-time employed teachers, we have substitute teachers, and then we have pulling from retired teachers, and how that would work in terms of their current compensation and then an additional compensation. And then I'll also note that it's, as I read it, it looks like outside of collective bargaining. So if we could just sort of walk through the logistics to help us understand that implementation piece, I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you very much. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record, and I'm going to start, and if my phone a friend to my right over here needs to jump in here, I'll let her. This compensation, I mean, we would love the teachers to get as much compensation as allowable. But every district is going to do this part a little bit differently. We certainly have talked to the stakeholders and had these discussions. One school district may decide to double the allowable amount. One school district may not. They may decide to add a certain amount on top of that. But with that being said, it's absolutely going to be above and beyond what we would consider as educators a standard rate of pay per hour, which in Clark County, I believe is $22.50 or something. And I think in Washoe it might be 30. So we would love that to be doubled or more.
So I think, Nathan Anderson, Assemblymember Anderson for the record, thank you for the question. I think Senator Dondera Loop explained it really well with it. But what happens with our contracts as educators, we get paid throughout 12 months, but we work 9 months. And so that's where the first thing is happening, is we're still getting that pay. So that's one issue. But with our contracted rate of pay, it's how much we would make for an hour. So let's just say that you are a nationally board certified teacher. Because of this body, because of our legislative body, you can get a 5% bonus. In all districts, there's a few districts that give more because of their negotiated agreement. So you've got an hourly rate of pay based upon what you would be paid based upon how many years of experience you have, plus that 5% to 8% extra. So that's how you figure out what your hourly rate of pay would be. Because quite frankly, our summer school teachers in the past, when it has been in the past, and I want to make sure that's very clear, this is not a usual world. But in the past, usually it's been those 1st through 5-year teachers they're the ones that are able to do the summer school because they're still trying to figure out how am I getting my bills paid, although we don't need to go into the funding. That's a different committee that I believe you're on. So we'll figure that one out later. But that's where that hourly rate of pay is based upon, is that's what a 1st or 2nd year teacher would be making. Well, we want to have our 15-year teachers to be out here teaching. And we want that's where that's coming from. So the way that this bill is set up, that is the floor. So let's say that you're at a committee in a community that it's very difficult to get enough teachers to be able to come in, or counselors to be able to come in. That is when then the school district and the bargaining agent are able to work together to come up with a different formula if necessary. But the hourly rate of pay is based upon what their current contract language is. And so that's where the bargaining unit comes in. And then finally for the substitute pay, as well as the high needs, because that's where that's from. The high needs pay, I'm not sure exactly how that works, because that is when it's an area during the regular school year when let's just say we don't have enough music teachers. Many times we don't have enough music teachers. So then we're able to hire somebody that has recently retired to come back and teach. So they are able to kind of do that difficult, hard to fill positions, for what that's from. So this allows us to be able to do that as well. Does that clarify a little bit more?
I think so. Can I sort of repeat back what I heard to make sure I heard it right?
It's very confusing, I get it.
Okay, so this will be determined at the district level. And for licensed teachers that are currently employed, it will be part of the collective bargaining agreement at the district level, their base pay plus this additional pay. So in my mind, coming from a background of retail years ago, it's like holiday pay, right? Like, it's, it's sort of, you get additional pay because this is special circumstances. Maybe that's a bad analogy. You're giving me that look.
I understand where it's coming from, Assemblymember Anderson. Thank you for making sure that to double check it. You're really close to right? So close. But they're 2 different paychecks because they're coming from 2 different areas. And so this, the summer school pay is not PERS, will not have PERS attached to it, but the regular pay that you would have over a year does have PERS. And so that's why they're 2 different areas. That's the only thing, because usually, again, going back to my years at Jamboree, how much fun was that? But anyway, that holiday pay would be in the same paycheck, but these are separate accounts, so they're separate pay.
Okay, so that's category 1. That's your licensed teacher, I think, and thank you for that clarification. Category 2 is the substitute teacher, who, if I understand correctly, are not licensed, but we utilize them, so we'll call them a second category substitute teacher pay. they're not collectively bargained, so that'll just have to be worked out at the district level what their pay is for this summer school. And then the same thing would go for the high needs or the, retired teachers, category 3. Each of those will be worked out on an individual district level.
Correct. So Assemblymember Anderson, thank you for, again, asking for that clarification. More than likely, and this is again more than likely, the substitute pay will continue to be the same as what they are currently hired at, because you do have to have a substitute license based upon some background checks and other elements. And so there is a license that is necessary, and that is where the contract is with the school district and that individual on an individual basis. So although they are not part of a collective bargaining unit, they do have a contract in that fashion. And so it would more than likely continue to be the same pay, but I cannot guarantee that at this time. I'm so sorry. And then for the high needs, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that language would be looking, but that way it allows a district to have that conversation with those individuals.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I believe we have 2 more questions. We have Assemblywoman Torres and then Vice Chair Miller, and then we will go on and Marzola, Assemblywoman Marzola, and then we will go on to support. So hang tight there, you guys. We'll be with you soon.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the legislation. I just have a couple clarifying questions. So the first question that I have is regarding Section 1, subsection 2. And this is the part that's talking about transportation, and it says along the lines of like, shall provide transportation for the services in school breakfast and school lunch to pupils who attend. And I know it's as applicable, and can you just talk a little bit about who that would apply to? I just want to make sure that this would apply to the students that are currently required to receive transportation now.
Marilyn Dondero Loop, for the record, absolutely, it will apply. Each school district will devise their transportation plan. So just as we have transportation plans now within school districts where maybe at the corner of X and Y they pick up, they may decide because some school over here is not having summer school, maybe they'll pick up at a different place, but the school will provide transportation. That is absolutely part of this bill.
Thank you. And I guess just to clarify a little bit of where I'm trying to get at. So like I know right now, I believe in Clark County, it's like 1 mile radius. You don't have to provide transportation to, and that's what I'm trying to make sure. Like schools that are currently not required to provide transportation to certain students would not be looped into this. Or I know our public charter schools don't require transportation either. So I just want to make sure that those transportation policies already in place are not changed by this legislation.
Nothing is being changed for the regular school year. This is for summer school only, and those schools that have summer school and the school districts are being asked to submit a plan. So when the school district, whether it's Elko, whether it's Eureka, whether it's Nye, whether it's Clark, or whether it's Washoe, it doesn't matter which school district, if they decide to use these funds and submit a plan, within their plan, we are asking them to submit how their transportation model will fit into this. So they may say in one school district, we're going to pick up every half mile. Somebody else may say 1 mile. Somebody else may say we're going to have 4 buses. That's submitting the plan. That's part of the plan. So we want to get as many students as we can to the schools. So it would behoove everyone to make sure that those transportation stop points are easily accessible for all children.
That was Senator Marilyn Dondero Loop, for the record.
Sorry.
Thank you. And I might ask some additional questions to clarify that offline. The next question that I had was, I have been fortunate for the last couple of years to work with programs through TRIO, which is a part of our state university and college system. And I'm just wondering if we've considered permissive language that would allow for additional funding to these programs that are already existing, these summer bridge programs that are serving the communities that are outlined in here, that are operating within our public system.
Marilyn Dondero Loop, for the record. Right now, this bill focuses on public schools and our state public charter schools, and that's who this funding is going to. Certainly, they would be welcome to use the funding that they may or may not receive from the ARP But right now, this is this funding. And I would be remiss if I didn't add, one of the things that is very important within this summer school piece is that in the past, we have not had summer school for elementary students. Summer school has almost traditionally been for high school students. And so this is K through 12. So that's a really important piece for us to understand. And the other important piece there is that if you sent your child to summer school, you paid for it. So you paid $70 for a half a credit of English 101 if that's what your student needed. This will be free of charge, K-12, summer school with transportation, with meals provided for all students who apply.
And I appreciate that. And just a follow up to that. So our summer bridge programs that exist with TRIO are held at the university systems and held at Nevada State College, but serve under-resourced high school students. And so I think it would be great if there was permissive language for us to just enable them to use funding for this, because they have licensed teachers in classrooms. They're providing that summer bridge program. They are providing transportation. They are providing breakfast and lunch. So I think it very much meets within the model of this, but I think would be very helpful to some of the programs that exist right now at Nevada State College, at UNLV, and UNR.
Thank you.
Really quick. Thank you, Assemblymember Torres. This is Natha Anderson, Assembly District 30. I think that the programs you're speaking of, if there are agreements between a school district, there are ways to be able to do that. One reason why we want to do this, though, we don't want to have this money going to go pay for a consultant. We don't want it going to programs that are not directly related to helping our students learn. And that's why, if possibly the groups that you're speaking of, that might be a way to be able to enter a partnership at the school district level, because those are awesome programs based upon what you're telling me, and then also what some of our offline conversations have been as well. But that's at that school district. That is not in every single school district, and so possibly there's a way to be able to have those conversations and have that be part of the plan in that fashion. So that way there's a little bit more of a much more school district oriented area, as opposed to it being just the state will allow it no matter what. Thank you for the question, though, by the way.
Thank you, and we are going to move on to Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And I have two questions that I'm going to ask, and the first one is more of a technical nature, and it's to follow up with what Assemblywoman Tolles brought up about section 1.4. And because the language, the way that the bill's actually written, that it says a sufficient number of persons, and again, I understand that because not everyone working in this program would be a licensed teacher. We need food service, we need transportation, we need support staff. And then it says that the school district or charter school may hire retired public employees. Now, again, retired and public employees legally would include every single person that's, a public employee in Nevada. But we also still know that licensed teachers are obviously the majority of staff that we would need. And I know we had discussions about this early on. And so the way that this language is written now, it literally just says any person, any retired employee. And I know the question was asked earlier about, substitute teachers and stuff like this, and I know that the intent was retired teachers that would like to come back, because quite frankly, we know that so many of our teachers right now are so burned out. It's been a very difficult and challenging year. So I guess if the technical language, which is completely permissive right now, but what is the plan and where are the districts do we anticipate that there'll be enough licensed teachers interested in participating in the program? And what would the plan be if there wasn't, if we had more students than teachers?
Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. Well, that would be a really good problem, but have an issue. You're absolutely right. I hope we have more students than we anticipate. But with that being said, where it says retired public employee, I would have to ask the superintendent if that is only retired teachers. If we need to modify that, then we might need to do that. But we are hoping that we have enough teachers who, either through the need of wanting to make more money or through the love of teaching, which sometimes is both. In my case, as a retired teacher, when I first started, I worked every summer doing something. So we are very hopeful that we will have absolutely enough people, but this saying unable to hire a sufficient number, then we would move to those retired teachers.
Yes, I do. Okay, and I guess I was initially getting at if even within the group with retired teachers and substitute teachers and everyone. My next question is on section 2, number 1. So it's talking about the reporting and the accountability piece, but the reporting back to about the progress of the program. And I notice in section 1, it says one or more measures of pupil achievement as determined by the Department of Education. And my concerns remain consistent from the beginning that I don't feel this is appropriate to have standardized testing, assessments, or diagnostics, especially in a short-term summer program. So can you explain what those one or two measures of pupil achievement would be?
Absolutely. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. So thank you for the question. I think, first of all, we need to go back to submit the plan, because if you submit the plan, you're going to say in there what you're going to use. We as teachers, those of us that are educators in the room, know 100%. If I get a bunch of kindergartners that show up for summer school, I've got to do some kind of a little diagnostic to know if they know their alphabet or if they know their sounds. That could be my diagnostic. At the end of 4 weeks, I could say, gee, they know all 26 letters and all 26 sounds. That could be my achievement. And by the way, I, as an educator and as a community member, I want to know the achievements, because guess what? I think our teachers are doing a great job. I think our educators that put out the time and effort to teach summer school should be applauded publicly for working with these kids. So I don't know that achievement's talking about SBAC. I think achievement's talking about where have we started and where have we finished. And by the way, applause, because look what happened.
Okay, so just for clarity, then you're saying that this would be the typical teacher-driven assignments that happen in class, that we're not using Ames Web and MAPS and iReady and all these other diagnostics and tests and stuff like that. So this is just the teacher saying, you know, we did some assignments, some quizzes, and the kids, their effort, their attendance, they moved forward.
Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. I cannot 100% confirm that, but I would tell you in the Zoom schools, for example, we had 100% success by those elementary schools actually using iReady. So if a middle school decides to use another program to have some sort of an assessment and work along so that we can move kids on their diagnostic literacy level and keep moving them up on their reading, I would consider that maybe a program that has a diagnostic but is also achieving our achievement that we need.
And Senator, it's, you know, the kids have already been on the computers all year.
Sure.
And so I don't want to bring them back and say, look, now you get to be on more computers. Can we maybe have the superintendent respond to this? Because it
I was actually going to ask
does
if,
fall
if,
under
if
the NDE.
Superintendent.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the question. Superintendent Ebert for the record. So we agree with you. There's no reason to bring children back to school just for an assessment. And I've said that publicly. I've written it in memos. I think the senator did a great job as being an educator of the student progress, and then also being able to communicate to the parents, you know, the progress that the child made during the time. So that is the complete intent. I would also expand, I think you were asking specifically about certain tools that districts use. There are teachers that want to use those tools, so I wouldn't want them to exempt them from using those tools to measure progress. But I would say that it is a plethora of tools that we use as educators to make sure that our students are moving forward.
So follow up, Superintendent, so it says that these are to be determined by the Department of Education. So can you tell us what you, as the department, would accept? Because saying, right now it sounds like everyone would have a choice, and we know that's not going to be the case. So what will the department accept as measures of pupil achievement?
I think everything that was stated in prior to, and just thinking about the conversation that's been happening over the last couple of days in regard to how we have conversations as educators, teachers, and principals about student growth and progress. It's a professional responsibility that we all have and that we actually enjoy, and I know you're an educator, so I don't mean to be in any way sharing publicly what we would accept, but through conversation, right, what the group of students that they have in front of them and how they are going to measure. So that's what they'll be reporting to the department. It is not a specific list that is going to be provided, but the construct of the expectations that may include some of those tools that you mentioned.
And what about for the teachers who don't want to employ those tools? Because again, a short time, they've gone through testing. I just want to teach. I just want to explore and work with the kids and instruct and coach. What about those? Will they have the ability to use other measurements to demonstrate growth for the kids?
Okay, so thank you for the last part of your statements. They will need to use some sort of diagnostic to measure, or tool to measure progress and be able to report that out.
That could be.
It is not going to be
instructor-driven.
Correct. Teacher-driven.
Thank you, Superintendent. And we will move on to Assemblywoman Marzola for, I believe, the final question.
Thank you for the presentation and the bill, and thank you, Chair. My question is Section 1, subsection B1, where states pupils who are members of a household that lacks the financial resources necessary to access services to address loss of learning. Can you describe what students are included in the household? Is there some sort of standard?
Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. Are you talking about Section 1, subsection
B1?
B1.
Correct.
So all of these lists that we have here, for example, number 2, pupils in grades 11 and 12 who are credit deficient. That doesn't mean a pupil in grades 9 and 10 couldn't be in that list. So in the members of a household that lack the financial resources necessary to access services to address the loss of learning, that's because we are trying to target those most at-risk pupils that are within school districts.
Can we maybe better define that so that we know exactly what type of students that it's including?
We don't want to be exclusive, I think, which is why we left that broad. So if we start to define, we're going to possibly exclude.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, committee. With that, we are going to move on to testimony in support. I know we have a couple folks on Zoom, so we will start with Ms. Gonzalez. Would you like to go first?
Dear members of the Nevada State Senate, for the record, my name is Yesenia Serrato Gonzalez, Yesenia Serrato Gonzales. I am here representing Azul Blue United by Autism, and we support Senate Bill 173 along with the parent leadership team that I am part of, the PLT. And I would like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to give my testimony regarding the importance of Senate Bill 173 to not only me, but my children and my community as well. I am a single mother and advocate to 3 amazing sons who are enrolled in CCSD, which include my special needs son in 5th grade and my neurotypical sons in 6th and 10th grade. As State Senator Maryland Dawn Durloop stated, we know that learning loss because of the pandemic is a crisis that threatens to set many of our kids back with a potential of leaving behind a widened achievement gap. If we do not work now to correct it, it will have implications for the educational development for years to come. I have firsthand seen my sons immensely impacted by the regression that virtual learning has caused them. From connectivity problems that cause absenteeism and truancy letters to be mailed to my home that threaten the possibility of being defined as a habitual truant, NRS 392.140, being retained, denial of credit, suspension of driver's license if 14 or older, cited/court action taken, NRS 62E.270 and 62E.430, to grading errors, extreme anguish and mental distress, particularly my special needs son. My oldest son went from being an honor roll A and B student to failing student. My 6th grader crying because he was failing subjects he worked so hard on and even attended tutoring weekly. Because the type of instruction all of my sons needed was in-person instruction. This particularly affected my special needs son most, who has an IEP tailored to his educational needs, and virtual education did not meet or comply with his needs as well as many others. I believe that there is no education like having a face-to-face interaction with instruction with your teacher. And I will quote again, State Senator Maryland Dawn Durloop. I know firsthand there is no substitute to one-on-one instruction time with students at any grade level in any subject. Our teachers are essential to the success of our kids. The fact is there is simply no way to replicate that in-person instruction and the one-on-one time we spend with our students. Senate Bill 173 would allow many children in my community catch up, especially those with special needs and those with LEP, limited English proficiency, or ESL, English as a second language, to also feel full support both academically and mentally, as a huge burden would be lifted off their shoulders. And that would give us parents a sense of peace, knowing that they would be able to take advantage of this bill. I will now quote Assemblywoman Natha Anderson. We are asking districts to specifically address our students who are most at risk, students who have experienced chronic absenteeism, our students with financial needs, our students who are not quite reading at their grade level, our pre-K or special needs, our special needs students, the list is long. As concerned parents, knowing that our children's education would financially be covered and help provide programs that would offer our children in our communities, number 1, free summer school to pre-K to 12th graders, whether in person or virtual learning. Number 2, free transportation. Number 3, free school meals to our children who attend. Number 4, provide counselors to help with mental well-being. And number 5, as Assemblywoman Natha Anderson stated, any educators or staff who participate would receive supplemental pay equal to their regular contract pay rate. I fully support the Back on Track Act and the intent behind it to give every child the key opportunity to be successful academically. I believe it would also help boost many students' self-esteem, which is vital for their mental health and well-being. This will help our children to get back on track. We cannot allow any more children to fall behind and to become part of another statistic. Our children are the future of our great state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. And I believe we have another testifier, a student, Joanna, is it Bietta? Please go ahead.
Joanna Bietta.
Very
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Bietta, a senior at the Advanced Technologies Academy in Las Vegas. As a youth legislator in the Nevada Youth Legislature, I hold an active interest in serving in not only my own district's thousands of students, but Nevada's in entirety. And as a lifelong Nevadan student who has experienced nearly an entire school year online, I know that Senate Bill 173 is what can get our kids back on track. I came into the school year with the understanding that it would be tough, but I didn't expect to have my education time cut in half. not to see friends I've grown up with at all since last December, or even witnessed my own grades drop. Unfortunately, these issues are farther reaching than just my school. They reverberate all throughout Nevada. When 38% of students are receiving one failing grade, at least in the Clark County School District, we desperately need a summer learning option. When 50% of high school students are chronically absent in the Washoe County School District, we desperately need redeeming credit and attendance options. When it seems that nearly 100% of students feel behind in some capacity, it's our responsibility to change that. Passing this bill is the first step in recognizing a solution that goes beyond any of us. Namely, Senate Bill 173 provides employees with a steady stream of income, allays several financial concerns of parents like my own, and beyond all else, encourages and educates those who have already lost so much. But it's also more than that. The populations we see consistently bearing the worst of the pandemic, financially, educationally, and emotionally, will be prioritized the most, as this bill effectively establishes mental health services, lunch services, and more, all at no additional charge. This year does not have to be defined by thousands falling behind. By passing, we have the opportunity to equip our students and educators with the tools necessary to forge ahead and fight back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bietta, for the testimony, and thank you for being a part of our student legislature. It's always nice to see young folks involved, so thank you for your testimony. With that, we will move to testimony and support in the room. I believe we have Mr. Daly. If you'd like to, please go ahead.
Madam Chair, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. NSCA supports SB 173 to create meaningful summer school programs to address the missed opportunities as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and for its focus on education equity. NSCA is also resubmitting a technical amendment for the committee's consideration related to retirement accrual for 9, 10, and 11-month education support professionals. Educators understand distance education is not an ideal replacement for in-person classroom learning for most students. And educators have been concerned about the impact the COVID-19 crisis is having on education equity. In a nationwide survey of educators conducted by the National Education Association last year, educators' top concerns with distance learning were providing the same level of education for all students, the complexity of teaching students with disabilities, and absenteeism among students. Educators who work in schools with higher percentage of students receiving free and reduced lunch reported lower class attendance and felt distance learning was less effective for their students. As Nevada students are now able to access some form of in-person education, this summer is an important opportunity for learning and enrichment, especially for students with disabilities, students who are credit deficient, low-income students, our youngest students, and those who have been chronically absent. NSCA would like to acknowledge our parent organizations, the National Education Association, for their role in helping to secure funding to address this issue in the American Rescue Plan. NSCA applauds provisions in this legislation providing compensation for working in summer school based upon the contract rate, as lower summer school rates fail to attract enough experienced educators. We would ask school districts who run extended school year or extended studies this summer to consider parity in compensation for educators working in those other summer programs. And we also are submitting an amendment for the committee's consideration related to retirement benefit accrual for education support professionals who, unlike their licensed counterparts, would otherwise not accrue retirement service credits during the summer months, this upcoming summer, if they're working in summer school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Daly, and I know that is technically opposition, but I know you do support the bill, but technically it should be in opposition, but the amendment that I believe all of us have on our desk is also on Nellis, so if members would like to look at it. But thank you, Mr. Daly, for your testimony in support-ish.
According to my members, it's in support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, it's on Nellis. Thank you. Thank you. So members, the amendment that he is speaking of is on Nellis. Sorry. Next, we will move on to testimony on the telephone, BPS. I know we have a number of callers, so I just, in support, I know we're excited about this bills, but if we could try and keep the testimony brief. And if somebody says exactly what you wanted to say, feel free to say ditto or I agree. So thank you. BPS first caller.
To testify in support on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 044, please press star 6 to unmute. Once again, caller with the last 3 digits of 044, please press star 6 to unmute. There you go. You all have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon, esteemed chair and members. My name is Dr. Tiffany Tyler Garner, Tiffany, Tyler-GARNER, and I'm calling on behalf of the Children's Advocacy Alliance in support of this important legislation. We are encouraged to see the commitment to addressing learning loss resulting from the pandemic, and want to note, as noted in Section 1, subsection 1B3, that we hope strong consideration be given to ensuring that it addresses the full learning continuum, including pre-K. It's important to note that during the course of the last school year, there was a 14% decrease in the participation during pre-kindergarten, and that as we look toward the support in coming years, particularly as we look at the pupil funding, there may be a loss of opportunities or slots for pre-kindergarten as a result of changes to the formula and or our push to stabilize the funding base there. So we hope that this opportunity can be leveraged to ensure that it will include some form of remediation or initial learning for children that will be entering the school in hopes that we can ensure that they are school ready when the fall begins. So we thank you for your consideration today, leadership on this issue, and hope that there will be a firm commitment to ensuring that all plans include a focus or support for participation in pre-kindergarten for children in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tyler. And once again, I'm going to say support-ish. Unfortunately, the bill as written does not include pre-kindergarten, but we understand where you're coming from. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 598, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, David Cherry, spelled Davidchherry, and I'm the Government Affairs Manager for the City of Henderson. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a statement of support for Senate Bill 173. We applaud the work of the Clark County School District to reopen our schools safely, and we look forward to all students returning to the classroom. While we acknowledge the efforts of the Clark County School District and the many community partners who helped to make distance education possible this year, the reported increase in failing grades alone indicates that many children have suffered a loss of learning during this time, and achievement gaps have widened. In these extraordinary times, and with the unique opportunity of available funding, we must take bold and immediate action to provide the additional supports our students urgently need. Since 2015, the City of Henderson has invested more than $6 million in Henderson schools, with revenues from marijuana business license fees and redevelopment area set-aside funds. We committed $200,000 to ensure that every Henderson student has access to a Chromebook for distance education this year, and have designated almost $700,000 to continue support for distance education into the next school year. The City of Henderson will continue to be a partner in supporting our schools with supplemental learning, and we look forward to the passage of this bill and approval of a plan to address student learning losses and to move forward in Clark County. Thank you for the opportunity to share this opinion with the members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry, for your testimony. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 837, please press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Thank you, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and Vice Chair Miller and members of the Assembly Committee on Education. For the record, my name is Jen Loescher, JenLoescher. I'm currently a regional math trainer with Southern Nevada Regional Professional Development Program and a senior policy fellow with Teach Plus Nevada. Today, I offer the perspective of an educator who has worked within Clark County School District for 21 years. As a Teach Plus Nevada Senior Policy Fellow, I support SB 173. I support SB 173 for its intention to address the equity gaps that our students have experienced during school closures and remote learning as a result of the pandemic. There has been a decrease in meaningful student engagement during remote learning, while our students and families had difficulties in securing the technology and connectivity. Our families continue to face hard financial circumstances, including secure housing. While we did all that we could as educators, we were not in a position to ensure all challenges were addressed. Our students need additional opportunities to access targeted academic and social-emotional supports in order to accelerate their learning. I hope SB 173 will be passed to help students recover, maintain, and accelerate their knowledge and skills. Ensuring students have this opportunity is necessary to serve our students during this critical time of crisis. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of SB 173.
Thank you, Ms. Loescher. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 918. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. My name is Jeff Horn, Jeffhorn, and I am the Deputy Executive Director with the Clark County Association of School Administrators and Professional Technical Employees. Our organization represents approximately 1,300 Clark County School District administrators, with 98% of those eligible to join our association are current members. We'd like to voice our support for Senate Bill 173. With a loss of in-person learning that has occurred as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, it is imperative that extra measures and wraparound services outlined in this bill are provided to our students who have received limited in-person instruction due to mandated distance learning over the past school year. Summer school sessions offered free of charge, specifically targeting students who are most at risk, will provide much needed relief and support to school-aged children and their families who are desperately in need of help. If passed, this bill will enhance student achievement and provide stabilization as well as a pathway back to traditional in-person learning while still allowing opportunities for students to connect online. In closing, we'd like to give a special thank you to Senator Dondero Loop for bringing this bill forward and for always being a champion of kids. I thank you for your time and consideration on Senate Bill 173.
Thank you very much for the testimony. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 989. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily Espinosa on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Administrators. NASA is the professional organization that represents school administrators throughout the state of Nevada, and as stated in our mission statement, our first primary function is to promote legislation that improves education within the state. SB 173 addresses the need for a plan to combat the loss of learning during the COVID-19 pandemic response, falling in line exactly with our goal as an organization. We appreciate the sponsors for bringing forward this important legislation and urge your support and passage. Thank you.
Thank you for the call in support. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 020. Please press *6 to unmute. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Beth Seawald, spelled Sewald. I'm the president and CEO of the Vegas Chamber. The Vegas Chamber is in support of Senate Bill 173. We believe this bill will help Nevada students across the state address the months of lost learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The harsh reality is that the pandemic has set back learning for all of Nevada's students, as we all know. Reports show that the pandemic has caused further losses among students as it relates to the achievement gap. The investment in our students funding summer schools across the state is an investment in their future as well as Nevada's future. We believe these investments of federal dollars from the American Rescue Act are essential to helping students achieve the goal of being either career ready or college ready when they graduate. It is simply a good education policy to invest in this type of program and help close the achievement gap for our students. The optional summer school for Nevada students will help address their educational needs. And the bill also provides funding for important services like transportation, meals, and lessons to students who want to participate. Also, by providing those services during summer school, educators and educational support staff will have the opportunity to work. This reality is that home learning could never fully replace in-person classroom teaching. The optional summer school will provide aid in that transition back to classroom teaching with significant supplemental support to our students when it's time to go back in person completely. Recovery cannot happen in a single summer, but we can start taking the next vital steps by ensuring each student can achieve their potential despite their grade levels of background. Thank you so much, members of the committee, for your time. On behalf of the Vegas Chamber, we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sewell. Nice to hear from you in this committee. Next person in support?
For any callers that have recently joined, we are currently testifying in support on Senate Bill 173. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 087. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Bilberry Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the committee. My name is Jared Luke, the Government Affairs Director for the City of North Las Vegas. Jaredluke. I want to just echo the testimony of those that are in support of SB 173 and add, when it was clear and evident that in-person schooling was going to be canceled, and evidently it was very reactionary during the pandemic. We hadn't seen anything like this in the past. We didn't know what we were looking at going forward. We started a micro school academy called SNUMA, and we started that in August. Fast forward to when it looked like school wasn't going to get started again in January, we admitted additional kids into that program. And when you talk about learning loss and you read about these statistics and the numbers of what we should or could possibly expect, I will tell you right now that just looking at the difference in the kids that were there from August through December, and then those kids that came in January, the learning loss was staggering. And so I applaud the sponsors of this bill, Senator Dondera Loop, Assemblywoman Natha Anderson, Superintendent Ebert, for bringing this forward, because it is needed. And I think that the long-term loss and the long-term effects of the learning loss from this pandemic, we probably don't know the extent of what we're going to be seeing, and it's going to cost these kids for their future, for future education, for job creation, and the like. So I applaud this bill, and I hope that it passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luke. Next caller in support.
To those who have just joined to testify in support on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in support on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the line is open and working. However, there are no other callers in the queue to testify in support on Senate Bill 173.
Thank you, BPS. With that, we will close testimony in support and open testimony in opposition.
To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the line is open and working, but there are no callers to testify in opposition on Senate Bill 173.
Thank you, BPS. I should have said for the record that there is no one in the room who is here to testify in opposition, nor on Zoom. So with that, we will close testimony in opposition, and I will open testimony in the neutral position. We do not have anyone in the room in neutral position, nor do we on the Zoom. So anyone on the line, BPS, for in the neutral position.
To testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 687, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Bilbray Axelrod and committee members. My name is Marie Nisus, Marie Neises, and I am the President of the Clark County Education Association. CCEA is testifying in neutral on Senate Bill 173. This is a much-needed opportunity to reduce learning loss attributed to the disparities of access and equity exacerbated by the pandemic. The learning loss experienced by students across Nevada is largely unknown, and the path towards reducing this loss will not be fully realized for years to come. CCEA educators know firsthand the instructional loss our students experienced as a result of the pandemic. This is why CCEA is in agreement with CCSD to provide a robust and tailored approach for summer learning opportunities to a broad sector of students. Plans have already been made and are ready to implement. We believe this is the right approach and respectfully stand in neutral to SB 173, which requires a role of the State Department of Education that is not necessary. As this committee knows, only a portion of students across Nevada will access the summer learning opportunities outlined in this bill, leaving many students behind, resulting in the widening of Nevada's achievement gap. Nevada must fully fund the K-12 education system so consistent and stable supports and interventions are afforded to Nevada students so they can make the academic gains necessary. For this reason, this legislative committee needs a designated revenue stream to fund education. During the 2019 legislative session, Senate Bill 543 was passed with the intent of funding the pupil-centered funding plan in 2021. We are now halfway through the session without a discussion about additional revenue. CCEA understands that to pass new revenue, we need a bipartisan effort led by the governor. Any decision short of passing new revenue this session communicates that being ranked at the bottom of the nation in academic achievement is acceptable. You, as legislators, have the choice to lead on new revenue that students cannot wait for. Thank you.
Thank you for the call in neutral. Next person in neutral.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 836, please press star 6 now to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jessica Ferrato, Jessica I'm here today representing the Nevada Association of School Boards, which includes all school board members in the state. We are a neutral on SB 173. As school board trustees, we have seen the negative impacts of the worldwide pandemic and have taken action to mitigate learning loss while keeping our students safe. All school districts have some in-person learning options, and the majority have been open since August. The needs across the state are not uniform and must be considered at a local level. Summer school has been used for years to provide continuous learning and bridge gaps for all students, including low-performing and minority students. All school districts are preparing to provide summer school and have started the planning process. School board members will review and approve the plans. We all want to provide a robust program this summer to provide services to all students who want it. To best meet the needs of all students, decisions should be made at the local level. Our school board members and school districts understand the gaps in learning and can identify where to target resources and funding. We acknowledge and plan to use summer school as a tool to address the needs of our students, including for learning loss. In addition, we will continue leveraging the federal funding for other targeted resources to help our most vulnerable students and students impacted by the pandemic. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for the call in neutral. Next caller in neutral.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 692, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, MaryPierczynski, here representing the Nevada Association of School Superintendents. And we are in the neutral position on this bill. Our districts are planning summer school and have been working on those plans. We appreciate the fact that this bill is permissive, and those districts that want to apply, present their plans and apply for the funds will be able to do so. That's important to our districts.
There are still a few questions regarding the mechanics of carrying out mandates that are outlined here, and that's why we're still in the neutral position, but we certainly appreciate the work that's been done on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller in neutral.
Caller with the last three digits of 080. Please press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Education Committee. My name is Leonardo Benavides, Leonardo Benavides, with the Clark County School District, testifying in neutral to SB 173, so their summer school plans are already underway. Summer learning opportunities will be provided for all pre-kindergarten through grade 12 students in the district. All school will provide summer acceleration 5 days a week to support students' learning and social emotional well-being, and offer instructional opportunities to accelerate students' learning, provide interventions and services for social and emotional support, facilitate study centers, and offer extracurricular activities for students. Extended school year, or ESY services, will take place to provide continued instruction for students with disabilities to retain learning over the long summer break. ESY will operate 5 days a week at designated schools within the district. Approximately 10 high schools geographically located throughout the district will also host secondary summer school for middle school and high school students for credit retrieval options and first-time course enrollment for high school students only. This secondary summer school will be provided 5 days a week. Also, Nevada Learning Academy, the district's online school, will provide credit retrieval options and first-time course enrollment for students in middle school and high school. We are testifying in neutral today as we do feel it is essential to provide summer school opportunities to students over the upcoming summer, and we want the committee to know that we already have this plan in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call. BPS, is there any other calls in neutral?
For those that just joined, to testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you wish to testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 173, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working. However, there are no additional callers to testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 173.
Thank you very much, BPS. With that, I will close the testimony in neutral and invite Senator Dondero Loop for any closing comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. Just a couple things in closing. One is a correction. This does include pre-kindergarten, and you will notice that under section 1B, number 3, pupils in pre-kindergarten or kindergarten. So, once again, this is not a complete list. This is a broad list so that we can include all, just as we didn't include English 101 in there. So thank you very much. So Madam Chair and the members of the committee, we would all like to thank you so much for this time, for your questions and participation, and all of us want to do what's best for the children in our state. All of us want them to be prepared for the future. And as a former 30-year educator and the grandmother of 5 school-aged children, I've been living this last year with my kids. I believe that the Back on Track Act is the logical glue that will help catch up Nevada students who have fallen behind and ensure a return to normalcy in the fall under a new school year. With this legislation, we will be able to restore the relationship between teachers and their students and empower children to learn in a setting where they can thrive. This past year has been tough on our kids, not just because of the educational disadvantages of distance learning, but also the mental toll of being away from teachers and their friends. Many of our students have felt isolated, and by allowing them to return to school this summer, we not only allow them to catch up on their school year work, but we allow them the opportunity to return to a day-to-day life that more resembles the lives before the pandemic. We will be able to alleviate the mental and educational burdens that many have faced as a result of this virtual learning. While we are looking forward to the day when this pandemic is behind us, the Back on Track Act We'll ensure when it's all over, our kids have the ability to transition more seamlessly into a brighter future. We have the resources we need to fund this initiative, the educators to execute it, and the students who are ready to learn. All we need now is for the legislature to empower our school districts to establish these programs to the long-term health and benefit of not just our students, but our communities as a whole. Thank you very much, and Assemblywoman Anderson has just a few words to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I think we're getting a no from, and I apologize. Thank you for bringing up the pre-kindergarten thing. That is immensely important to me, and so I don't know how my eyes skipped over that, but I'm very happy, and thank you for all your hard work. And Assemblywoman Anderson?
Thank you. I was just going to say thank you. Really appreciate the questions and the dialogue, and I just think the Back on Track to Act will give our excuse me, my mask is coming down, our schools, our students, and our communities an opportunity to recover. Thank you again for this opportunity, and looking forward to further discussions.
Great mask. Well, with that, I will close Senate Bill 173, which brings us to our last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Before we go to public comment, I'd like to remind folks who are in the room, if anyone's making public comment, I don't believe so, so on the phone, please state and spell your name, and you are limited to 2 minutes, and public comment is for general items in the purview of this committee. So BPS, do we have anyone on the line for public comment?
To give public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 490, please press star 6 to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Cyrus Hojati, Cyrus-Hojjaty. I guess the real question is, are kids really learning in these public schools? You know, they go to school, they attend class. Is there true learning? Because you talk about learning and education, but is it true education, or is it just schooling? Now, before I begin, I want to point out that when the kids were placed at home, was this really necessary? Did it reduce the number of deaths? How many people of the individuals under the age 18 experienced deaths? And the other issue is when kids are going to school, you know, they're going to school, memorizing, being obedient to teachers, doing massive numbers of homework. Are they really learning, or are they just doing it because they're being pushed around and trained to do so? The issue is a lot of people seem to believe that grades and credential levels are true education. I don't buy into that. I switched high schools, and my last high school I graduated in South Orange County, California, was among the highest ranking schools in the United States. But when I moved, my grades plummeted. So we often think that high ranking schools means that kids are really learning. But in a lot of cases, it just proves obedience. The real education, the real learning aspect is not just whether the student really understood the concepts, but are they going to apply it in the real world? So if they're learning about a certain architectural style, if they design a building with a certain style in the real world, then that is real learning. But if they're just cramming for SATs, AP classes, all these kinds of things, and all the concepts are gone the next few days, then what's the point? We're spending all this money. It's time that we measure real education by real world contribution. And it's time to really discover that are these students doing this because they want to, or they're just being shoved down their throat? So we need to focus on real learning and not just schooling. Thank you so much, and I hope I opened your minds quite a bit.
Thank you for the call and public comment. So with that, we will close. Oh, do we have any other callers in public comment? BPS.
Chair, at this time, there are no further callers for public comment.
Thank you very much. So with that, we will close public comment, and let's just talk about the lay of the land a little bit. We do, at this point, have 15 bills that were sent over and have been reported, so we are going to have, and I believe our second committee passage is the 14th. So just a couple weeks, so we will get this done. We will be meeting on, what's today? We're meeting on Tuesday, the April 27th at 1:30. I will get that agenda out soon. So thank you, everyone. It's fun to have you all back. It's nice to see everyone in person. And with that, I will adjourn.